think that's very important. Not against, he's saying that.
Switch your blazer. You're allowed to switch it up. I can't switch it.
It's summertime.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a seasonal thing.
It was the biggest surprise.
Yeah, and I was in
This is funny.
I thought he left and come back.
I was actually
He
serious.
was like, I had no idea.
I was trying to share.
I thought he was studying. He walked out.
I was there already.
Yep.
I realized it earlier.
No, it was good. It was good.
You walked out like, what is happening?
You saw I was. That's why.
Totally.
I didn't know you were home.
I'm pretty sure. Isn't it?
In Byam, darkecha is a short mimer on page Ayin Reish Hey. Right after where we were up to, where we finished. Darkecha shekosha ve'in cheshek, which is really connected to the last mimer of an ech zoichem lahagish as a shayshmar. It's very hard for a person. It's very hard for a person to be busy with things if he really doesn't have any or and any chiyas in what he's doing. If a person's work, if a person doesn't find any or chiyas in what he's doing, it's hard. The person will continue on, hopefully, because there's a Kabbalah soul that he has to earn a living and he has to take care of his responsibilities, his family, and so on. So the work that he does, he'll do with a Kabbalah soul. But it's hard. It's hard. Without any chiyas, what a person is doing, it's very hard. A person doesn't feel any hatzlacha, cheshek, or satisfaction, or gratification, chiyas from what he's doing. As I avodah v'alimud v'atfila kosher ma'od, then the avodah, learning, the davening becomes all a burden and becomes very, very difficult. And this is really true for anybody. Avol b'miyuchad. But it's especially true for those people who their teva is chiyas and or and cheshek and sipuk. Now he says sheteva nafsham. It doesn't mean necessarily that the teva of that person is to have an or, a chiyas and a cheshek in avodas Hashem. It could be that the nature of this person is that he's looking for gishmak in what he does in life, which is a healthy instinct. Of course, it's a good and healthy instinct in his life, whether it comes to his marriage, whether it comes to whatever he does in life. He's a person that his teva is that it should be with cheshek, with excitement, and with sipuk, and a feeling of sipuk and nefesh and so on. So for these people in particular, it's very, very hard to continue on with any avodah, and avodas Hashem included, when that chiyas, that cheshek, that sipuk is not there. Ki nefashos elu, page Reish Ayin Vav. Because these type of people, which are very, this type of a chevra, are more prevalent now than before Mashiach comes than it used to be. And we spoke a lot about this years ago in the Chabuz Yosef Tzaddik, the Neshamas of Torah. Before Mashiach comes in particular, we're dealing with a generation that consists of many people that have a natural need for or and chiyus in what they do. And in the earlier years, it was less. There were less of those type, and people would daven and do their thing, and without it having to be something which was exciting and would give them a feeling of sipuk. Same thing when it came to work. That in the earlier generations, to a large extent, people were not looking for any kind of fulfillment in the work that they did. Work was not an Indian of fulfillment. It was work, just Kabbalah soul, and people went day in, day out, and without calling in sick 3 times a week. People are sick nowadays, but the cholas ahava, they're not necessarily sick physically. They're just cholas ahava. They feel empty. And they feel that this is what I'm doing with my life. This is what I do with my life. I drive a truck. I fix pipes. I fill out people's wills or whatever it is I'm doing. A lawyer or people. It wasn't a time of. It wasn't an need of self-reflection and fulfillment. It was just do what you have to do. And it was with a tremendous Kabbalah soul. But as we get closer to Mashiach, and the neshamas of Tohu are all over the place, that Indian of Cheshik and Ahava and Or and Chiyas and Sipuk is something which is much stronger. Therefore, for many people, it's harder to get to shul than it used to be. Those of us are a drop older, meaning past 40, 50, know that we grew up among Jews who they just did what they had to do. It wasn't an Indian of whether they feel like it or they don't feel like it. What does this do for me? This doesn't work for me. And all over, I'm talking to. I've seen this too, but not Hashem here. It's not so much. But there are people that tell me about parents who send the kids to yeshiva, and the fathers come out, don't go to shul. They don't have a chelik in Avodas Hashem. Not that was never such a thing when I was growing up. Again, there were people that were not frum. Now things are much better. There are many more people that are keeping Shabbos and kashrus and so on. We see much more. The community has grown, but when I was growing up, those who were frum, they went to shul. They went to shul every day, and they did what they had to do. But there wasn't any, there was no kumbaya, there was no lights out, and it was just, you do what you have to do. That was it. And now it's becoming a huge struggle just to keep people connected and involved. And so that whole thing that happened, after COVID, to get people to go back to shul, they practically had to have people standing around with nets on the street trying to get them to come to this. And I've heard that there's still some people that never came back. In other words, they had their ticket out. That was it. Bye-bye. And they couldn't make it back. And this is not a simon of a person who's not chalila, of someone who's not a mammon, or somebody who's. Oftentimes there are many things that are involved, but oftentimes it has to do with these neshamas that they want to have they want to enjoy. They're not enjoying. They don't enjoy shul. They don't enjoy shul. So you have to make, of course, now we have to make all kinds of things and programs and special, all kinds of stuff. That's why we say after COVID, that people were telling me they can't get people to come back to shul, so they were trying to do this and that. I said, you get people like to juggle and to have an elephant in front of the shul and to do all kinds of, special things to bring people back. They're looking for chiyuv, and if the Yiddishkeit that they're getting is a Yiddishkeit that's not with or and not with chiyuv, and they don't feel that in their learning and their davening, so then in that way they're more honest than people of the past, and they just say, I'm not coming. When I say honest, I mean it's just that they can't live in that dichotomy of not feeling it, of not enjoying. People are looking for pleasure and enjoyment in everything, which in of itself has an akud of kedusha in it. That longing to have pleasure and enjoyment, it comes from a high place. It comes from a high place. But then when it comes down into kelim that are not strongly developed, so then people just can't continue on. They just can't go on. And that's ki nefashos elu kimat einem moitzim koach. These nefashos, these Jews, kimat, they can't find the energy. Lasok b'davar she'ein lahem ba'or. To be icing in something that where they don't feel any or. They can't go on. We see this all over the place. And if they feel that they're not matzliach, and the measure of haslacha is not getting the job done, it's enjoying the job. Getting the job done, when it comes to ruchnias, one doesn't see results in this world. Getting the job done, if you put on film, you don't have the Barsham, smiling at you in a way that you could see and giving you some points. And so again, everything now with trying with incentives and with all kinds of ways of giving these chevra a feeling that they're having some haslacha, that they're accomplishing something, and the schools don't know what to do with the kids. Someone told me that I was talking to somebody this week about from one of the schools. I guess I hate the terms, but modern Orthodox school. I don't like these terms, but the modern Orthodox, it's called officially modern Orthodox school, and they have a son, I think that's in 10th or 11th grade, and all the friends came over for a barbecue or something. He said out of the 20 kids that came, there were only 3 that were wearing yarmulkes. I said, what? I guess I'm naive. I'm just not aware of this. 3 that were wearing yarmulkes. So I said, yarmulkes? That's like an avodah now to wear a yarmulke? So I said, her son's not in one of the highest, is like in a lower class. I said, okay, a lower in the grade. It's a lower class. Not the yarmulkes. And I don't blame the kids. I don't blame any of these kids, chas v'shalom. I blame the teachers and the Byam to some degree. But then on a deeper level, I don't blame them either. They also grew up without much of a sipuk and a cheshek. So they still wear yarmulkes or whatever. But then the next thing, it's not to wear yarmulkes. Does this shock you when I said you heard of such things? You're familiar with this? I didn't know. What?
Kids walking around Central Avenue that are from kids without yarmulkes on. Literally, just a regular day.
I can sometimes to say good Shabbos. When they're on the scooters without yarmulkes, I've seen this too without yarmulkes on scooters. I always say good Shabbos to anybody that I pass on Shabbos. I know, but they look like they're Jewish kids. I could tell like they're Jewish kids. They have the look of being one of ours. And it's Jewish. I mean, like yeshiva boys. They have the look. I could see that it's but then you look and you see it's not a yarmulke, and that whole scooter business, which I spoke about Shal Shudas last week, 2 weeks ago. It's not their fault. What's the tzura of a Shabbos? What's the tzura of a yontiv? And if it's without chiyas, these are kids that are looking for or and chiyas. And then when they get a little bit, that's when they're 13, 14, when they become 16, 17, then the or and the chiyas they can look for is in a girlfriend. And the parents are scratching their heads. What are they supposed to do? But it's not it. It's not it. It's the neshamas of Ikfus of the Mashiach. For or and chiyas. Listen, 100 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, talking about in Europe, there were plenty of the Chevra that went off to the communists, or to the, those years, the Zionists, and to the Bundes, and the social, all kinds of things. Also, those were the neshamas that were looking for or and chiyas and sipuk. So they wanted something that they wanted. They were looking for idealism and sipuk and nefesh and excitement, and they weren't finding it in the world that they were living in. It's not something which is new. But in those years, those people would generally go completely off. They were just out of the program. They went completely off the program. But now we have this sort of funny thing. People are signed up, but they're not in it. They're registered for Yiddishkeit, but and they're trying to hold on to the basic things. But it's very hard for these people to do that. Of course, the Mechaber is not talking about these Chaver that I'm discussing. He's talking about the Ovdei Hashem that are looking for or and chiyas, and when they're not finding it, it's a terrible. So these individuals, even if they have a time in their lives where they are Zaychalalus Bahar Hashem. Let's say, using the kids as an example, that they ended up going to Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and there was an experience of Lalus Bahar Hashem. They did have some sipuk with their learning, and they were excited about Yiddishkeit. And they were going, to this to Yulim and the Rebbeim's homeless Shabbos, and they were into it. Well, the Kabbalah is Or. There was a time of Kabbalah's Or, where there was Or. Ve'ezim Madrega, something. Shahem Einu Maslichim Lokum B'mkom Kodsha. But they can't stay there. Because that's just how life is. There are aliyahs and yeridas, and so on and so forth. V'kasher Byam hanisyanis v'akashya. So when the nisyanis and the difficulties and challenges resume, I mean, they're always there, but when the person was on a high, so then he was able to and he was enjoying his Yiddishkeit, and he felt the sipuk and chiyas. So then he wasn't overwhelmed by those nisyanis. But v'ilu ha'or v'acheshek ne'alamim. But now that the or and the cheshek has disappeared, hanneshamas elu noiflos below koach. These neshamas just drop. They just fall, faint, without koach. Ve'mafsidim es hamadrega shekvar olam. So forget about staying in that place. They have you read this, terribly you read this. Because the klal in Avodas Hashem, this is how it is. The teva of things is that it's aliyas and yeridas. That's how life is. This person's affected by many things, not always religious, not necessarily anything philosophical or theological. Things in life get to a person. For whatever reason it is, he's not at a time right now or it's not a time of chiyas. That affects his davening and his learning and everything else. Klema achre gadlus bo katnus. It's the seder of gadlus and katnus and gadlus and katnus. Rakim hadam oime benisyanis hayurida v'akatnus. So how is a person supposed to survive the nisyanis of Yerida and Katnus? The only way is if he's able to dafka be megala during the time of his yuridis and his katnas, to dafka during that time to megala that he was able to really acquire the or ha'aliyah sha'isala, that he really does have this or within him. Then azai zaychel alas agadlus abad. Then he's able to continue on and to come to a higher place of godless, like we're learning in the Meshivas Nefesh in the Thursday Chabur. However, if during that time of katnas, which is inevitable, if during the time of katnas the person falls apart and he's giving in to things that are not good, and he's failing the nisyanis, the tests of the time of katnas, so there will be some, hopefully, there will be, not always, but hopefully there'll be an ascent, there'll be another godless, but it will be, it won't be anything new, it won't be with any hischachis. Maybe he'll come back to where he was. So, he'll come back to where he was. So his entire life, it's like that, but really, he stays on a certain, and then there you read it, and then he climbs back to where he was. And that's for many people, that's quite an achievement. But to get back to where he was. But as far as godless sheni, the second madrega of godless, a higher madrega of godless, that should come after a period of katnas, if katnas is what the Maimer is about, if katnas is lived in a way of being part of one's avodas Hashem, not I'm out. I'm in avodas Hashem, just I'm in a place of katnas. When a person's katnas is lived as a part of his avodas Hashem, then when he emerges, it'll be a second godless. It'll be with his chashis, with a higher place than he was before. So you read this and so on. But if the person's katnas is with falling in all kinds of ways and giving into all kinds of taivas and so on, even if he comes to a place afterwards, even if he is able to survive and climb out of that basement and come back, it's usually going to be just to get back to where he was. So if he was batting 250 and he had his slump, and during the slump, he was messing around and eating the wrong things and not exercising, whatever it might be. So when he gets out of the slump, so he'll be a 250 hitter. He'll get back to where he was. It's not going to be 275, 280. He'll get back to 250. But the avodah of katnas is an avodah that brings to a higher godless. When he comes out of the katnas, to come to a higher godless. But in order for that to happen, one has to recognize during the time of katnas that he's Noived Hashem. It's not that he's off. It's not that he's been thrown out. He's not anymore part of the chevra. That's what's important. So Mimele, he doesn't make any progress. He's not making progress. And his entire Yiddishkeit, his whole life is like a revolving door. Just a good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. But always, even when it's good, it's just where it is. That's it. So there are some important notes, but I want to be able to let's try to move ahead. To analyze more the bad thing is better to go to the good thing. The only solution to this, okay, that's not easy. That a person, even during the time of katnas, should hold on to seichel. And during a time of katnas, to use the seichel, because he doesn't feel right now. He doesn't have or and chiyas. He's not feeling excitement. But the seichel is seichel. And he has to find enough in his seichel to get him to shul, to get him to his charusa, to keep him away from the bad stuff, without the or, without the chiyas. So where does it come from then? What's the seichel? The seichel is a seichel of Kabbalah soul. Old-fashioned Yiddishkeit. Without the excitement, without the or, without the guitar. Yiddishkeit 001. The seichel, the person is able to have the seichel to be mekabel all. This requires enough of that commitment to be stubborn and to continue on during a time of katnas. Continuing on, doing what he's supposed to do. This is what we're talking about in the Rabbi Nachman Chabur, doing what he's supposed to do. Without the or, without the chiyas. To do what he's bakshanas. With work, using that as the motion. He goes to work. It's not a day off. He goes to work. Doesn't feel anything. Not interested in what he's doing. Doesn't excite him. You have to pay the bills, and you have to do what your responsibilities require of you. Period. Akshonis, stubbornness. Gambli or v'gambli chesha. Without or and without chesha. Without or and without chesha. El rak kikach tzarech. So what keeps you going? Kikach tzarech. Now this is getting harder and harder to convince kids of this. It's very hard to convince kids of this. Kikach tzarech. Because this is what you have to do. The teva of the kids nowadays is if you have to do something, you don't want to do it. The having doesn't sell it any better. And then when you say this is your responsibility, that makes it less appealing than it was before. Kikach tzarech. Why do I have to do this? Because your grandparents did it, and your great-grandparents, all the way back to Har Sinai. That's why I have to do it. Kach tzivani Hashem. Then say, well, Hashem wants you to do it. Let him tell me personally when he likes me to do it. V'ani hanivra chayv lasis es b'tzorah. I was created by him, and I work for him. I got to go to work. Now this, on its own, doesn't work. Especially these days, this doesn't work. Even for adults. Even for adults. I told you I told this I think the other day that my son-in-law told me that he went to the mikveh, and there were guys walking around, not dressed. And they were making l'chaims in the mikveh. They were drinking schnapps in the mikveh. So I said, has there been any reaction to this by any of the local authorities? I don't mean the police. I mean, there's a machlokes whether, listen, the guy goes to the mikveh, so it's a great thing that he goes to the mikveh. So the fact that he walks around, hopefully at least he's wearing his gashkas, let's dive into that. The fact that he's walking around in the mikveh, taking the chaims. So on the one hand, okay, it's good. The guy goes to the mikveh, it's a good thing. On the other hand, like, what is that? What is that? He's looking for some excitement other than the hot water? Or, even the hot water, but if it's not hot, so sometimes it's cold. The mikveh itself is a lama speak. We have to have a sideshow in the mikveh. Shul we know is for fun, the kiddush clubs and all that stuff. But in the mikveh, there needs to be a sideshow. He said, this is now like passing around schnapps in the mikveh. So it's like, but it's such a simon of what. So there is this rush like to be part of a mikveh like that became in certain ways like a cool thing to do. Okay, I don't know why, but it became. I think maybe guys just a lot of the guys just feel dirty and disgusting because of some of the things they're looking at. I think that might have to do with it and things that they do. So, but then to pour schnapps in the mikveh to have a drink, this is this part of this Indian of like that too has to become a party. This also has to be an opportunity to party. The mikveh is a party, and if it's missing that party kite, so then it's like, you know what, your mikveh doesn't provide any liquor? That's what's coming up? It's a liquor-free mikveh?
Dry mikveh.
Dry mikveh. It's a dry mikveh. You have a dry mikveh? Nah. A couple blocks away, there's a wet mikveh. A dry mikveh. I'm still processing this. I heard this 2 weeks ago. My son told me. I'm trying to process this. And again, I'm lamed schusan, and Yidden, they want to be pure. They're looking for tahara. It's a chashuv in it. But just doesn't have to give you any kind of additional pleasure, a party, or something like that. Just kamoshu, kala kamoshu. It's very, very hard. These days are Kabbalah song. And the guy's already going to the mikveh. And his wife's proud of him. Her husband goes to the mikveh. And it's the talk of the neighborhood. Go to the mikveh, we go to the mikveh. When I was growing up, the mikveh was quiet. I was in Cuba, I grew up, I was in Queens. I went to the mikveh in Forest Hills. Off the Grand Central, there was the mikveh that they had on Erev Shabbos for guys. And then the Cuban Hills, when they opened the mikveh, it took years and years and years until they had it on a V'lai place, the mikveh. It was quiet, still. You went to the mikveh on an Erev Shabbos, a handful of people. The whole Erev Shabbos. So in that respect, things have picked up a lot. The mikvahs are busy. Baruch Hashem, there are many more people going to mikveh. And for the most part, that's gewaldig. But again, there's this need for the or and the chiyas. It's difficult that it should just be the Kabbalah soul. So Pishon Zayin Mor Levado Klal Ki Elo Osam Nefashis Yikaris, because these Nefashis Yikaris, they are Nefashis Yikaris. They're very dear. These Nefashis. These Jews are these are people who want something, who are looking for or and chiyas. They're Mashiach Jews, the Baal Shem Tov Jews, right? They want chiyas. They want chiyas. But the other side of that is that it's very hard for them to be matzlich with something where there's no or. There is no or. And for them to go on and on, it could be a long period of time, just with Kabbalah soul, just with the mitzvah, with whatever it is, just with the Kabbalah soul. It's very, very hard. These whole, these extravagant, the eating, the food things, and all the stuff that comes now with Yiddishkeit, so overdone, and so if a person would come from the outside and see this, they would say, what is this thing? Food and all the things that come with the Orthodox lifestyle. It's strange. It's strange. I'm just saying objectively, it's a strange thing. The kind of the physical things that are attached to the spiritual are very, very exaggerated. They're very strange. Just from a I think, a perspective of a healthy, normal person, if you take somebody that's not Jewish, and they would see what goes on in our. It's strange. Looking for pleasure in shul, looking for some kind of a satisfaction, a physical gratification as a result of your spiritual experiences. It's strange. It's very, very strange. It's not normal. when something like is exaggerated, not normal, there's a reason for that. There are spiritual and emotional reasons why is it that such a thing. So the Kabbalah soul, therefore, what's the Eitz? The Eitz is Lachein B'Soch Kabbalah soul. I mean, the Mechaber of the Sefer wasn't thinking about the things that I'm talking about when he wrote this. He was talking about different Madrega, but it's the same. It's the same Yisod. Lachein B'Soch Kabbalah soul Tzarech L'Hayir Or. The Eitz is that yes, Kabbalah soul, but there has to be some. You have to find a way to light up some or in the Kabbalah soul. Some or. So, Nigunim and davening, to have some. Again, we never had that growing up. And, it was revolutionary when somebody got up and went, L'cha dodi l'gras kala. You know what I'm talking about. V'neja vaznagavela, l'cha dodi l'gras kala, v'neja vaznagavela. You know what I'm talking about. That was like a revolutionary idea. Oh, this is exciting. Because it goes a little bit, l'cha dodi l'gras kala. And we were growing up and people were looking at Newsweek and other things. They didn't have the religious papers then. All the from things. It was just a newspaper. Was it? Every week, the same. Shalashudis was when it was the peak of excitement. Shalashudis. Mizmor LaDavid, Mizmor LaDavid, Mizmor LaDavid, Hashem, Mizmor LaDavid. Pass the herring, Mizmor LaDavid, Hashem. You had to be there to know what I'm talking about. That was it. And it's still, it's not like it's not there anymore. But yeah, in that matzav to put in some or and some chiyas that b'chol esav gedav she'ein bo or hemshichim legalis es or shenelam bo v'az yatzlichu lasik bo. In every single thing where right at that time there isn't the or, you have to find some way to be megala the or hanelam, the hidden light in this matzav that I'm in right now. Of course there's or. It's Shalshus. It's Kabbalah Shabbos. I had to find some way to megala some of the or hanelam, something of the or hanelam, something. So it's interesting to watch that even these rabbis, people that I know that have no inyan at all of anything with the or and chiyas, but they're beginning to realize that in order to keep our shuls like going, I got to come up with something. So maybe some assistant rabbi that could do this kind of stuff. Like maybe I get some assistant rabbi or begrudgingly bring in some music thing or got to do something because the attendance is dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. So I got to do something. So some exciting lecturer is going to come talk about the war with Iran. Somebody sent me a clip yesterday, the latest report from BBC. That an Israeli hospital hit an Iranian missile. An Israeli hospital hit an Iranian missile. No, it's not so far from it. It could be such a thing that they could come up with that. So we're going to have a lecturer come in and talk about Iranian missiles and about this stuff. We get something. We got to get the shul. We got to keep the doors open. Got to keep the customer satisfied. It's an old song like that. So how do you keep the customer satisfied? Got to keep them coming. How do you keep them coming? How do we get them to go to shul? So you have lectures, something. Got to do something to keep it going. In other words, they're also looking at this for some way. How do you megala going about doing it the wrong way? But to megala some or in this matzav that we're in, there's an or that's there in davening. So this rabbi thinks, well, the way to megala the or is to give another lecture about the historical background of l'cha daidi. So we're going to have some discussions about. I'm going to give. He's going to go online or look up at some sefer and find something about the history of l'cha daidi. So because that's the limited kalim that person might have. He himself doesn't know what to do about any Orachiyas, so he's going to go online to find something about the history of Lechadodi. And now there are more and more shuls that are trying to get the trips to Poland and to do different things, which is good. They're trying to find some art, but there needs to be some art, and because the Kabbalah's Ol itself is not keeping the shul going. It's just not. It's not. And what's interesting, it's a fascinating thing to watch so then you have the kids in these places that the kids, they'll do their year in Eretz Yisrael and they come back with some or and some chiyas. And when they come back to the world of their parents, that interesting thing that happens when those two worlds, when the kid comes back with a little bit of freshness and he comes back to the same old world of his parents. There's the kid with the niggin for Lechad, he comes back to Lechad, he comes back to that, what happens? So that's what's been going on the last 50 years or so. More. It's like the last 50, 60 years, it's more of that interesting thing. So I remember when the shul started, we had some of this, some of our early chaver that were coming, the kids brought, the kid would bring the father to shul. And sometimes the father, and those fathers that said, okay, I want to make my kid happy, he says to go to Eish I know it's a weird place, but I'll go. And I heard it's weird. And the father would come. So some of these fathers ended up staying. I don't want to name them. There are a few of them that you know. But they ended up staying. Because the kid came back and the kid was something, and then they wanted, and they told him somebody in Yerushalayim said, you live in Woodmere, try it. So then the kid would say to his father, can we go? And the father was a nice guy. And the father said, yeah, all right. I'll go. It's not for me, but I'll go. And then sometimes. And in many ways, since that time, so many years ago, there are many, many more options, the things that are going on, where there's more or, there's more chiyas. The key to success in everything in life, and before Mashiach comes, because that's how it is, and one's Yiddishkeit is limso ma'at or b'chol davar, to look for a little bit of or in everything that you're doing, in Yiddishkeit and in life, to try to find ma'at or b'chol davar. V'ayidei sheyilo bo lefachos ma'at or tia nafshu mesugelis lasik b'mitot kabbalah. So if he finds at least a little bit of light, ma'at or, if he finds ma'at or, he'll be able to continue on, hopefully, with Kabbalah's own, with accepting the responsibility. But he needs ma'at or. Now, how do you scrape together at least a little bit of or? It's by intellectually understanding the chashivas of this. The tachlis, what's the point of all of this? At least that. That's why it's becoming so more and more critical to teach the kids from an early age in yeshiva, which I've been screaming about all the years, teach them why we do these things. In the old days, they didn't have to do that. They just said, just do it. But you have to teach them now why we're doing these things. That they should understand what's the tachlis of this. Why should I put on film? Why should I keep Shabbos? These are never questions 50, 60 years old with children. But you have to start now to tell them why this is important. Because at least the understanding is a ma'at or. At least to understand that is ma'at or. Even if you don't feel it, you understand the chashivas of the inyan. But it gives you some or and some cheshek to go on. But if you don't know the chashivas at all, you don't know the chashivas, and you just tell the person, keep on doing this, or the kid, just do this. And the kid doesn't even understand it. He doesn't feel anything, but he doesn't understand it. The chashivas either, or why am I doing this? What's the tachlis of this? As I tzarich lahayr esek ba'al yidei emunah. Emunah. Because with emunah, a person can always find ma'at Torah. Dainu ayidei hayidiyah Shashem is Baruch Hu Zeh Shehevi Oisi Lasik B'Zeh. That thought that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the one who wants me to do this, and it's kivyochel important to him, and he has nachas ruach for my doing this. But then it means you have to introduce the kids from an early age to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we can't take that for granted. Maishi, this is Hashem. It means basic levels of machshava, of hashkafa, of pnimius, to begin with from an early age. And look at all the people that are going around shaking their heads. Why is my kid like, why? He's not interested, doesn't daven, doesn't care. How could this? Why should he? What's wrong with the kid? There's nothing wrong with the kid. Why should he want to daven? Who is he davening? Who wants to sit around every day for a half hour, 40 minutes, and another 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, talking to somebody you don't believe is there, you don't know who he is, what is it I'm talking about? You see this. What is it? Shabbos Chuzah Shehevi Yisrael was b'matzav is a kol ma shoyis Hashem's baruch rak letoiv v'imkein zeh toiv ma'od b'shvili, because a person can become excited if he at least understands that this is good for me. At least understand this is good for me. That basic understanding, this is good for me. Even a kid, if you understand that something is good for him, might not be he enjoys, but it's good for him, there'll be some motivation to do it if he understands that it's good for him. How does a typical kid in school, in the 6th grade, in the 8th grade, how does he understand that it's good for him? What? How? How is this good for him? What's the good? So then the thing that this parent will fall back on is, well, I think if you don't do it, you're going to go to Gehenna. So it's good for you because you don't want to go to that place. That's pretty bad to have to. That's really a bad thing. I was at the Bar Mitzvah last night, and the rabbi of the boy, a very fine person. So he gave us 10-minute thing at the thing. It was all the Yetzirah. He said, this you will be able to overcome the Yetzirah. This is the Yetzirah. Notice the reason that you're now becoming Bar Mitzvah, is that now the stakes are much higher, that if you give into the Yetzirah, which is going to be much bigger now, the stakes are much higher, that there's a much hotter Gehenna for people who are Bar Mitzvah than there are for little kids. Because now it's the whole thing over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. If you could have heard that talk that he gave, it would have been the same talk 70 years ago. And you could even feel while he's saying it that he does this at every Bar Mitzvah he goes to. And all the kids by the kids' tables, not one of them that's paying attention. Not one. They're all like hitting each other and, putting a piece of kugel onto the other one's, whatever, on his chair. Totally irrelevant. The same talk and the same over the Yetzirah. Why should I? Why should I fight against my Yetzirah? What are you talking about? What's in this for me? What the Yetzirah is offering me, I understand what's in it for me. I feel that in my hormones what's in it for me. What are you offering me? I'm offering you the possibility of not going Gehenna for what you're doing. Yes. I guess I'll deal with Gehenna at some other point in time. Right now, I'd like a little bit of Gan Eden. And the stuff that the Yetzirah is talking to me about, that's Gan Eden. What you're talking about is Gehenna. If it's a choice between the two, I'll take Gan Eden any time. Especially when she's walking around in a skirt and she has a cute little ponytail. I'll take it any time over your talk of Gehenna and Gan Eden. This is a Gan Eden I can see with my eyes. Is this complicated? I don't think this is complicated. But I'm having this discussion, this argument for 40, 50 years with people. Why is this complicated? Well, there's something different, something new. There's a new Yiddishkeit all of a sudden. I don't know. Why is this complicated? Im kein ze tov mod b'shvili. That's the sentence. To feel everyone, kid, child, and adult has to feel that in his Yiddishkeit, that Tov B'Shvili. Doesn't have to be fireworks. But to understand, basic awareness and understanding, she said Tov B'Shvili. Because if a person doesn't feel that, and you say just Kabbalah Soul, and it's not anything, it doesn't mean anything, doesn't understand why is this and what, so how long can a person go on? That's an or. That could ignite the or. Then even though right now he's not so thrilled, he's not so excited, but he's makabel, and he does what he has to do, he takes his responsibilities, but there's an or in cheshek. Even though I don't understand exactly, but I do know, I understand this is mod tov, it's kedai. Close the door. Haderech limso or b'chol dover hi lahavnis chashivuso v'kamashu l'tov. That's the beginning. V'nei ha'or ha'pnimi v'yoser hu limsos Hashem zbach shemistatim b'chol v'sorch ha'inyan ta'aynu sheb'chol dover v'dover shekarla yichaber oisel Hashem zbach v'yischaber ayad al Hashem zbach. Of course, the tachlis, the best thing to do is that in every single thing that a person does, he tries to find, like Rav Nachman says in the first Torah, the or of Hashem in everything that he does in life. To see, to connect Hashem in everything that a person does, to find Hashem at this moment in my life. And through that to become connected to Hashem Yisbarach. But they say, Yimtza manoach l'nafsha, the koach lahachzik maimah. And this will give the person a feeling of peace, and the strength that he needs to be able to be makabel all, to see that Hashem is here too, to sense His presence. Ki b'chol dover sheyasa yargish es ha'or shel ha'kesher v'achibur and Hashem Yisbarach. Ki b'chol dover Hashem Yisbarach. Because in every single thing that he does, he's able to at least see ma'at or of that presence of Hashem in every moment of his life and everything that he does, and that will hopefully be that little bit of or that's ne'elam in this moment that he reveals that will be able to give him the ability to continue on with his Kabbalah self. It's a short word.